Okay, so today we're going to read Chapter 8 and Chapter 9. Chapter 8. It was exactly 10 past 10 when Blinky Bellvale arrived at his new office in Starburst Amusement Park. He had bought the amusement park less than 2 months ago, and he had grand plans for it, all of which were being held up by Mr. Trickett. The owner of the Starburst Ballroom refused to sell the old place to him. No one refuses Blinky Bellvale anything, thought Blinky, as Mr. Trickett would soon find out to his cost. He settled down at his shiny desk to read the local newspaper. Murder on the dance floor seemed to be the headline of the day. That will do nicely, chuckled Blinky Bellvale. I can't see any bank lending money to Mr. Trickett now. He'll be forced to sell to me, and there is naught he can do about it. Blinky rubbed his hands together. Then an item on page 2 caught his eye. Fortune teller vanishes, reappears 3 hours later. He read on. Edie Girdle. That was the old bat who was gossiping in the kitchen with Mrs. Sutton. I don't like gossip, said Blinky Bellvale to himself. Gossip should stay firmly in the gob and not be spread about like muck. Neither do I like fortune tellers who go looking in crystal balls and seeing what they shouldn't. Last of all, he glanced at the national papers. They were still on about the robbery in Bond Street. No closer to finding the culprits. There was a picture of the detective in charge of the case, Cardwell. Blinky put on his round glasses to study the article more closely. They had the effect of making his eyes look enormous in his head. Cheryl! He bellowed. Cheryl Spike was his personal assistant. He had chosen her from a long list of applicants, all far more suited to the job of personal assistant than she was. But Blinky Bellvale liked women with a bit of muscle on them, and Cheryl Spike certainly had muscles. There she is. She had been the women's wrestling champion of Pudley-Pool-on-Sea before she was disqualified for not only biting off her opponent's ear, but also swallowing it. She was dressed today, as always, in an ex-army uniform, over which she wore an orange day-glow vest. Her hair dyed black, was white at the roots, and she had a smile that would curdle milk. Did you read about the murder at the Starburst Ballroom? Blinky Bellvale asked her, showing her the paper. Yeah, said Cheryl. Her voice was very low, so low that it dragged itself across the floor. He got what was coming to him, that's what I say. Blinky looked up. You knew that Johnny Carmichael then? Might have done, might not, said Cheryl, the end of her nose going red. She sniffed. Where's the toad? Asked Blinky. I want him here. The toad was Cheryl's little brother, though they looked as different as fish from sheep. The toad being thick, thin, apart from a round belly. He was always chewing bubblegum, and when he blew bubbles, he looked like a toad they'd once seen in an H programme on the telly. Cheryl wiped her nose on her sleeve and mumbled into her walkie-talkie. Spike calling Toad, coming Toad. She waited. He's not answering, she said to her boss. Then you'd better find him, hadn't you? Said Blinky Bellvale, before I lose my temper. Cheryl looked worried by the idea. There is work to be done, continued Blinky, and I don't like to be kept waiting. Work such as breaking arms and bending legs, Mr. B, asked Cheryl. Sort of, said Blinky. First, get Trickett on the phone, and then find the toad. Cheryl dialed the number and handed the receiver to her boss. She picked up the walkie-talkie again and left the room. Mr. Trickett, Blinky Bellvale here. I would say good morning, but it's not a good morning for you, is it? There was a whimper at the other end of the phone. You could solve all your problems by selling me the Starburst Ballroom. No, came the nervous reply. I've told you, the ballroom is not for sale. Blinky Bellvale leaned back in his chair and snorted. And I tell you, Mr. Trickett, I tell you once, I won't tell you twice. If I have to tell you 3 times, you'll regret it. Take the money and scarper. Do I make myself clear? I'm not selling, said Mr. Trickett, and that's my last word. A pity, said Blinky Bellvale. A big and terrible pity. He slammed down the phone. Cheryl, he called. Cheryl and the toad both tried to come in through the office door at the same time and got stuck. Stop the mucking about and get in here, said Blinky Bellvale. His employee stood to attention in front of his desk. Now listen to me. I need something smashed. Cheryl's face lit up. Smashing things is just up my street, Mr. B. With door knockers on, who, where and what? She asked with a snarl, of which a pit bull terrier would be proud. The who of is a fortune teller called Edie Girdle. The where is her booth on South Pier. The what is her crystal ball. Poor Edie. Chapter 9. Emily had managed to find the library, which was no small feat, for the shop had a habit of hiding rooms or shrinking them. It had also been known to change its layout, and every now and then even change its decor. So it was with a sense of relief that she pushed open a door to see Fidget sitting at a desk studying a huge leather-bound book. That summer, before Billy Buckle had turned up, Emily had been helping Fidget learn to read again. He had been able to once when he had worked for the old magician who had designed the shop, but since being turned into a cat had somehow lost interest. Now, along with knitting, reading was high on the list of things Fidget liked to do. Not quite as high as eating fish paste sandwiches, but nothing much was. Flutting around him were thin, flighty books, some dancing from one shelf to another. Most of the novels were looking serious as they watched two history books on war having a fight. Emily went over to the books and sorted it out. It was just that they should never have been put next to each other. Emily loved books, even quarrelsome ones, but especially books with pictures in them, lots and lots, so that pages weren't too thick with words. There were no pictures in the book, and Fidget was busily studying. "What are you doing?" asked Emily. Trying to work out who the owners of the half pairs of wings are," said Fidget. Emily stared at the list of names. "What do the crosses mean?" she asked. "They belong to those fairies who can't read or write," said Fidget. "Wouldn't it be better," said Emily, "if we put all these names in a computer file, including the crosses, of course?" Fidget thought for a moment, then said, "Will the names fade on the screen?" "No," said Emily. "Then how would we know which fairy has been back to collect his or her wings? Can't we just put a line through their names?" "Blimey," said Fidget. "I hadn't thought of that. Do you think there might be a book here about the habits and pastimes of giants?" "Shh!" said Fidget, as Primrose came in carrying Donut. They both looked miserable. Donut because he had been dressed up in a tutu and hat on his head. Primrose because she missed her dad and wanted to go home. There's Donut, dressed in his tutu and his hat. No wonder he looks a little bit miserable. "Daddy should have come back to collect me by now," said Primrose. "I mean, he'd never just leave me here. I know he wouldn't. He promised. You can't break a promise. Never, ever, ever." "Oh no," thought Emily, seeing Primrose's lower lip begin to wobble. The last time she had cried, she'd left puddles of tears everywhere, and it had taken an entire afternoon to clear them up. There really was no end to the trouble caused by living with a growing giant. Her bed had broken 2 nights ago, and yesterday she had used 17 towels to dry herself after her shower. The cereal dishes didn't hold enough cornflakes to satisfy her appetite, and this morning Fidget had to give her a washing up bowl. She was eating them out of house and home. "Let's go downstairs," said Emily brightly. "I want my daddy," said Primrose, tears welling in her eyes. "Why don't we call your mum?" said Emily. "Do you have a number?" Primrose began to wail. "Oh dear," said Emily. "Best not to mention Mum," whispered Fidget. "She left for India with her friend. They've gone to find themselves." Emily took Primrose's hands. "I know how you feel, sort of." You do?" said Primrose. "Yes, I think so, because my parents left me behind in a hat box at Stansted Airport." Fidget said, "I'd let that particular fish off the hook if I were you, my little ducks." "You mean they didn't come back either?" said Primrose. "I'm sure they meant to," said Emily, "but I found Fidget, or rather Fidget found me." "I want my daddy," wailed Primrose. "I want to go home." Fidget put his paw on Primrose's arm and handed her a handkerchief. "I know your dad would never leave you. He's got a bit lost, that's all, and we're doing everything we can to find him." "What do you mean, lost?" said Primrose, blowing her nose into Fidget's red and white spotted hanky. Well, said Fidget. Donut gazed up at him sadly. I think we should go and buy some ice creams and build a sandcastle, paddle in the sea and that sort of thing. Primrose brightened a little. When will he be here, my daddy? Soon, very soon, I'm sure of it, said Fidget, in less than a twirl of a cat's whiskers. Donut ran out of the library, trailing the tutu and hat behind him, followed by a slightly more cheerful Primrose. When they had left, Emily turned to Fidget. Do you think that's where my parents did? She asked. Do you think that's why my parents did? She asked. What, me little ducks? Went off to find themselves like Primrose's mum? No, said Fidget. He stood up and gave Emily a big hug. So maybe I will never know who they are. Maybe not, said Fidget. But you can tell what's round the cut. But you can never tell what's round the corner. Emily took a deep breath and told Fidget what had been worrying her. Since she had drawn back the curtains and found they were no longer in Podgy Bottom, an unsettling thought wouldn't leave her, that one day the shop might wander off without her, and she'd be left alone all in the world. That will never ever happen, said Fidget. As long as there are fishes in the sea, I will always be with you, always. Emily felt a tear roll down her face. She wasn't at all keen on tears. They could be seen as soppy, especially by Buster. Now, ice creams all round, said Fidget, taking her hand in his paw. They went downstairs. Where are you going? Asked Buster, sticking his head out of the bedroom. To the beach, said Emily. Oh, goody gumdrops, I'll come too. Emily rather hoped he wouldn't. Buster was very good at putting a crease in the day, but he followed them down. Oh, leave me behind then, shouted the magic lamp from the landing. That's right, just go off and have fun while I look after the sick keys. Come with us, said Emily. I can't, I have a shop to run. Someone has to stay behind while you're out enjoying yourselves, said the magic lamp. I would have expected better of you, dear mistress, than to leave me like this. Have you even thought about the keys? Yes, she has, said Fidget. So there's Fidget. There, so he's very tall, that cat. Yes, she has, said Fidget, as he gathered together inflatable rings, towels, sun creams and hats. Let's go. We all need fresh air, and Primrose needs a bit of fun. Is this a good idea? Said Emily. I mean, we will stand out. My little duck, said Fidget firmly. Half the people we bump into don't believe in magic, and they are not going to change their minds because they see a talking cat and a giant's daughter. We're off to the beach with Primrose, and that's the end of it. Oh, I don't know about that. I know if I saw a giant cat at the beach, I would definitely be wondering what is going on. So next week we will read another chapter. See you then. Bye.